First on film and entertainment, Alex First with you, and Jaqui Hammerton, Greg King, and Peter Krause. Now, the big romantic movie of the week, which is hardly The Notebook, is It Ends With Us. And it's got a very, very serious subject, and it spends a lot of time dealing with the romance and less time dealing with the major issue. I found it quite distressing, I've got to say, and I'll go into a bit of detail in the next few minutes, but perhaps we'll start with that. I was curious, Jaqui, overall, how did you take to the film? Because I thought if the Europeans had done this, there would have been a lot more subtlety.
Oh, whether Europeans or American, that's not the point. The film, as it is, I found it too long for a start. 2 hours and 10 minutes or thereabout.
Totally agree.
I came into this film not knowing the subject matter. It's based on a book that's been huge. It's been like a really big selling novel. And so, but I came in innocently without knowing what it was about. So the first kind of, well, shall we say 60 to 70% of it, I was going a little bit, this is a bit rom-com-y. And then when it shifts gear, that's when I shifted gear and got into it a lot more.
Well, likewise, having said that, it's kind of interesting about, well, is it subtle in any way, shape or form? And given the history of the character at the centre of it, Blake Lively, you kind of wonder whether the alarm bells should have gone off earlier or not, or whether, like in real life, people hang around for longer than they should because they want to believe things will work out differently. Your views on that?
Yes, but you need to say right from the start, this is a film that is about domestic violence.
Yes.
And then people know about the nuances here, and when we talk about whether someone should know straight off. I thought it dealt with that very well.
Well, okay, Lily Bloom's father has just died, and her mother, Jenny, wants her to eulogise him at his funeral. And from what I gather, he was in his 60s. Anyway, but she can't do that. Why not, you may well ask? Well, that sort of brief intro sets in motion a chain of events that will, well, what's the best way I can put it? See the sins of the father visited upon the children, or in this case, the child. So as a teenager, the character of Lily Bloom, because it's played in two time frames, one as a teenager and one as a sort of mature adult now, relatively young adult, but still a mature adult. So as a teenager, Lily struck up a really loving relationship with a fellow student called Atlas Corrigan, and he found himself struggling and homeless after he himself had trouble at home. But for all the mutual affection between the pair of them, that coupling was doomed to fail when her father intervened, right? Lily Bloom's father intervened. And now we move to the present day, and Lily remains gun-shy in terms of relationships. And while trying to process her reaction to her dad's passing, she unexpectedly meets this hot-headed guy called Ryle Kincaid, who's had a very bad day. They meet on the rooftop of the building where he owns an apartment, or he has an apartment. I'm not sure whether he owns it or is paying it off. And he turns out to be a neurosurgeon who shows more than a passing interest in Lily. And though that initial meeting is short-lived, circumstances see them meet up again months later. And by then, Lily has opened up this funky florist shop. She's always had an affinity with plants. And she's employed Ryle's married sister as her only employee without realising who she is. In other words, didn't realise that her brother was the guy that she met on a rooftop. And now that bloke, who hasn't exactly been the settling kind, he's a bit of a player, pursues Lily relentlessly. He charms her, he engages her. But of course, all is not as rosy as it first appears, and things get even more complicated when Atlas Corrigan re-enters the frame. So, as you rightly said, Jaqui, based on a very successful 2016 book by Colleen Hoover, I was reading about her, really interesting, because she's published quite a few books, and she's self-published books as well, and one of her self-published books has gone straight to the top of the Amazon charts. Amazing. So she's sort of obviously got a prolific aptitude for doing this sort of stuff. Anyway, it's the writing of the screenplay is by Christy Hall, and look, we pieced together the backstories. I've sort of tried to summarize it all because it jumps back and forth in those two time frames I spoke about. So the way I'd put it is that the very serious subject of domestic abuse is cloaked in thick layers of syrup. And, we're talking about longing looks. We're talking about the physical heat, if you like, between the pair, soft focus, romantic music and the like. And look, I reckon there'll be many will feel that the filmmakers, led by the director Justin Baldoni, who did, 5 Feet Apart a few years back, and he's also the male lead in this one. I think the filmmakers have laid it on with a trowel. That's how I sort of felt while I was watching part of it. But mind you, that juxtaposition between hot and cold is quite stark. It's jarring, and I see some merit in it, actually, because it's ultimately what drives the plot. And look, the leads, I think, play their parts pretty effectively, notwithstanding, as I say, hitting the subject matter over the head. Blake Lively, I think she switches gears quite convincingly. She plays sexy and smart and traumatized. And then you've got Baldoni bringing his own smouldering sex appeal to the character of Ryle. And I actually really like Jenny Slate. They're the sort of Carrie Bradshaw style guide there, right? Sex and the City on the television and in the movies as well, of course. There's a sense of style there, and she plays Ryle's sister, Alyssa. So, look, notwithstanding the earlier remark I made about pulling focus, in terms of the soft focus, it's quite an attractive-looking film. I mean, the settings, the cinematography, I think it was set in Boston most of the time, by Barry Peterson, who did My Big Fat Greek Wedding 3. It gives us a pretty good sense of place. But my reservations are really around the soap opera feel that the picture has, not to overlook what I thought, like you, was the inflated running time. There's no way this needed to be 130 minutes. And, I kept on reflecting on, well, could this have been done better? And my answer was yes. Were it not for the talent, I reckon this has got a B-grade telemovie feel. What about you, Jackie?
No, so I agree with some of what you said there. I think in the end, what we take away from this film is that it shows how domestic abuse can be so easily explained away. You used the word, he's a bit of a hothead. We can say that's his personality. He's a bit of a hothead, or it was an accident, and there's always excuses. And therefore, I think it really explains it quite well to people who maybe haven't been in this situation and don't understand it. There was one excellent scene in which a hot dish is taken out of the oven,
yes,
gets dropped on the floor. And as I watched it, I was a little bit annoyed because the camera work was very shaky and jerky. It was all over the place. Yeah. I couldn't really tell what had happened. Was it, when his arm came up, did he hit her? Why is she sitting up there so upset?
I thought the same thing, Jackie. I didn't know whether it was a reaction, putting your hand into an oven and then suddenly getting burnt.
Exactly. And it was brilliantly deliberate, because it was only upon reflection later that she and we could see how easily that can be explained. Oh, he didn't mean to. But in fact, it was a demonstration of, again, that hot-headedness where he struck her.
So you're saying it was a fit of pique, that it wasn't just the reaction to...
Well, not pique. It was anger.
Anger.
Yes. Yeah, he lashed out, put it like that, for whatever emotion you want to put on it. The physical result was that he lashed out at her, but she didn't realise, and we didn't, and therefore we didn't realise that was exactly what happened in that micro split second. And I thought that was good direction. I agree with you. Yeah, it was too long. I think it was too. I thought it was going to be a love triangle kind of thing, and but I also think that this, as you said, the soap opera kind of feel of it, lulled us from the start into a false sense of security, where we were just going along on this romantic ride, and the flashbacks that she starts to have the very, very brief flashbacks, not whole scenes, just little flashes, we start to see as she connects the dots with the behaviour that she begins to see in him. And I thought that was well done too. So to me, it's really a film of two parts where I was kind of over all this mushy stuff. But what really worries me about the film is that the men who need to see this will not be in the audience. And the people who are in the audience are the ones who can see not only her point of view, but how these situations come about. And so they won't be in the audience.
Well,
I don't. And the women who are in the audience and in this situation may, as a warning I give, find this extremely triggering.
Very, very much so. I totally agree. I also, and I don't want to spoil the ending for people who go along and see it, but I kind of wondered about an element of almost convenience about the ending. I'm not sure. And again, we're going to have to talk around this, Jackie. I hope you know.
No, I like the ending. The ending's fine.
Okay. I just thought it was too movie-like an ending.
And... it's a movie. It's a movie.
Yeah, I understand.
It's a movie-like ending. It's fine. It's good. Don't worry about it.
No, well, also, just to bring this up, and I'm not going to put credence in it or otherwise, but there was an article in the online in the Daily Mail, and a lot of people are going to say, well, it's not it's not the Times of London, but there was an article about the fact that they haven't the two stars haven't sort of appeared together in interviews, and sort of there's suggestions of a feud between them. I mean, I don't know whether it's sort of been written with the idea of getting clicks or whatever, but it is interesting to me that Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni haven't appeared together according to this article to sort of promote it. And is there anything behind this? Was it what's...
Oh, Alex, your mic is crackling something awful.
Oh, really? I'm so sorry. I apologize. I'm not sure whether there's anything behind this or not. You hear about things like this. It just does seem a bit odd that they haven't appeared together, if that's indeed the case. But so be it. So, okay, let's get to a score. I don't think, gentlemen, you've seen this movie as yet. It ends.
No.
Have you, Greg? Have you, Peter?
No.
So, okay, I'll be interested, Jackie, in terms of your score for this, because I think we do need to see more movies like this, and I'd like to see films that are handled with a little bit more subtlety, that's all. What are you scoring it out of 10? It ends with us, M-rated, 130 minutes.
7 out of 10 for me. And I will just add, in the movie reviewing sort of theme here, I did love the... it's a small cast, and I thought each of the cast was very good. I thought the acting was just fine, very fine, and I thought the characters were well displayed. So it's quite a solid film to watch. I quite enjoyed the look of it, and particularly the characters. And as you said, Jenny Slate.
She's terrific.
Best one. She brought a real vibrancy and bounce into the film, so she's thoroughly enjoyable. Yes.
Even how she's introduced is such an unusual way, it's almost like happenstance per chance, etc. But she just got this joie de vivre about her, and I think that's big. Yeah, I'm sort of in similar territory, 6.5 to 7 out of 10 as you. I kind of wanted to like it even more as a movie. I'm not talking about, obviously, the subject matter. You are on JR 88 FM. If you want to subscribe, we are happy to take your money. I don't mean that in a nasty way. We need subscriptions to keep the station running. I think it's $54, 52, 54, I can't remember now. Just go on to j-air.com.au and support your community radio station 24 hours a day. Intelligent and thought-provoking and programming and some pretty good music as well. I want to move on to another Russell Crowe movie. We seem to have seen a lot of them of late, and we're not talking about him playing a religious figure in this one. I'm not sure, we saw him in 2 religious movies in the last year or so. This one's called Sleeping Dogs, and it's rated MA, runs for 111 minutes. And you've got Russell playing Roy Freeman, who was unceremoniously booted from the police force after a drunk driving incident. And he's since been diagnosed with Alzheimer's and has undergone revolutionary cranial treatment. So he's getting medical treatment now. He's had operation as well. So his memory's shot, and I found this a pretty strong beginning. Every wall and device in his home is labelled, and that includes instructions on how to cook food in his freezer. Jackie, as you know, I'm
in his microwave. You'll cook it in his microwave, not the freezer.
No, that includes instructions on how to cook food that has been in his freezer, is what I meant to say, right? Thank you very much. I perhaps I'd like to think that I'm not of the same diagnosis as Russell Crowe's character, Roy Freeman, but you know how much of a master chef I am. I burn toast. Perhaps that's what I need, instructions on how to take things out of the freezer and put it into the microwave, because whenever I try to do that, Jackie, I fail miserably. Are you surprised to hear that?
Oh, Alex, Alzheimer's is a pretty serious subject here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not. Yeah, but hang on. As serious a subject as it is, he seems to be able to overcome it reasonably. It's part of the movie. So I think I can. I'm not, call it black humor if you like, but yes, I need to pay more attention to my cooking and cleaning duties, which are all but non-existent. I'm afraid it's not a good thing, is it? Every now and again I'll clean up though. So there you go. That gives me some merit. Hey, Greg, you and Peter live alone. How good are you at cleaning up your house space?
Not bad.
Yeah, okay. And Greg?
Okay, but a bit of mess is fine.
A bit of mess is fine? Okay. What would you do, Jackie, if you suddenly came along and saw a bachelor pad with mess all over it? Would you be compelled to clean it because you couldn't live with it? What I'm just curious as to your predilection here.
I'm not going to live with the bachelor pad, Alex. No, I would turn on my heels and walk away.
Yes, good on you. I was hoping that was going to be the response. Golly. Oh yes. I wonder how many people are whether this is a male or female thing, because I know there are males who are clean freaks as well. But is it more of a tendency? I'm trying to get to the psycho-analytical side of this, Jackie. Do you think?
No, it's a personality thing. It's not.
Do you reckon? But do you honestly think it's his personality? You don't think it's more a predilection of women to be cleaner? No.
No. They clean the ones who don't like to clean, they clean because they have to.
Yeah. Well, that's the point that I'm making. Like every now and again, we've got a his and hers bathroom, right? I'm revealing trade secrets here, but we've got a his and hers bathroom, and basically, when my wife walks into my bathroom and says, "Oh, you've got to clean that," and I'm thinking, "Leave me alone. It's my space, right?" But inevitably, I then feel guilty and clean. Now, that's probably not the right approach, is it, Jacqueline?
Oh, gee, I don't know, Alex. I'm not going to give you domestic.
All right. Well,
nice.
Maybe the title of this movie, Sleeping Dogs, as in sleeping dogs, let the sleeping dogs lie. Maybe that's what I'm saying here. Okay, let's talk about the film. So, right, out of the blue, this guy who has Alzheimer's receives a call from a representative of a non-profit legal action group. And she's reaching out on behalf of a prisoner called Isaac Samuel. And he's scheduled to be executed for a vicious murder a decade ago. It was the murder of a pioneering psychology researcher, and it's a role played by Martin Sockers. Anyway, Samuel was incarcerated on the evidence of then homicide detective Freeman. As I say, he was Russell Crowe's character, and his partner at the time, Jimmy Remus. So basically, evidence from them saw the Isaac Samuel character, now a prisoner, convicted. And in the next month, he's actually scheduled to be executed. So, as is often the case, he insists he didn't do it. And he actually implores Roy Freeman to do some digging before it's too late, for obviously the proverbial axe has fallen. So when Russell Crowe's character Roy Freeman does that, he uncovers a Pandora's box of lies and manipulation. And the finger of blame points in many, many different directions. And that includes the ambitious research assistant to the researcher that was murdered. Her character's name is Laura Baines, and her wannabe novelist boyfriend, Richard Finn. There's also a shadowy figure called Wayne Devereaux, who's a war veteran suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, whom the pioneering psychology researcher helped find maintenance work. And another, this is in terms of all these potential suspects, and another who hardly seems like a clean skin in all of this is Freeman's ex-partner as well. So you've got, fingers of blame in all sorts of directions, and maybe he didn't do it, or maybe he did. So Sleeping Dog's been written by Adam Cooper, who did Assassin's Creed, and he makes his directorial debut here alongside Bill Collage, who was the co-writer. And jumping between the past and the present, as this movie does, it's taken from a novel called The Book of Mirrors. It came out in 2017 by a Romanian author called E.O. Sharovitsky. I'll try that again. E.O. Sharovitsky. Anyway, as a storyteller, Adam Cooper is drawn to characters in crisis, to someone who goes on a journey from sort of a lost and fragmented state to being restored. And that's where you enter the character of Roy Freeman. I thought it was quite an involving mystery crime thriller. The ground is constantly shifting, flashes of memory returning. Freeman, who's fighting his own battle, is quite persistent and methodical. And I thought Crowe was quite convincing as the man on whose shoulders Samuel is set to die. He's quite dour, he's troubled, but he's also resilient. And around him, Adam Cooper's assembled quite a diverse collection of characters, none of whom could lie straight in bed. And I think the movie's all the better for it, that you've got all these red herrings potentially, but people who have flaws. And you've got one sort of actor, Karen Gillan, playing a prima donna. That's the assistant research director. You've got Martin Sokas, equally entitled as the actual guy who got murdered, and Tom Flanagan, rough and ready, as the fellow cop to the Russell Crowe character. And you've also got the boyfriend of the research assistant, Harry Greenwood plays him. He morphs that character from self-assured to aggrieved. And you've also got the guy who's the odd job man, Thomas M. Wright plays him. He presents Wayne Devereaux as a bit of a mental stew. So many threads, many suspects. It's quite a convoluted movie, but I still found it quite compelling. Real star of the show is Russell Crowe. Fares significantly better, I thought, than his recent religious offerings. We're talking about The Exorcism that came out not so long ago, and The Pope's Exorcist that was out last year. What did you think, Peter, of Sleeping Dogs?
This is a film of interest because it's a whodunit. It develops a storyline about a past murder and who was responsible. And at the same time, it looks at Russell Crowe's ex-police officer character who has Alzheimer's and has been given experimental treatment, none of which is believable in this film, because at times he asks involved questions of particular suspects when he doesn't even remember.
That struck me as well while I was watching this. I'm thinking, hang on, he's laid down a bed supposedly, or the filmmakers have laid down a bed, but then he seems to be incredibly incisive. And the explanation for that, Peter, though, is that he's undergoing this revolutionary cranial treatment that seems to be working. And I'm not convinced that I was sold on that. Are you saying the same thing?
I'm saying the same thing. In fact, that almost borders on science fiction if he's been given this sort of borderline experimental treatment, etc., which doesn't make a great deal of sense. So we have these two stories dovetailing, Crowe's character, his Alzheimer's, and the whodunit. And then we have introduced the whole idea of plagiarism and of academic cheating with the mirror effect. So, look, there are some nice elements in the film, as well as some that are a bit unbelievable. But then it goes into this sort of twisting last third of the film, which for me didn't make a great deal of sense either. So there were a lot of elements that I thought, no, I don't think so. This is not an Agatha Christie, M. Night Shyamalan film. And also I didn't believe some of the aspects of the storyline and the old-timers and Russell Crowe's character, although Crowe does a pretty good job at playing it straight. I was reminded of the film Memento, which goes, which goes back into memory, into past, and revisits and reconstructs. And I thought that was a far superior film, whereas this one has this hook, which I don't think is particularly effective with the old-timers treatment. So, look, it's a film of interest, but I thought there were too many elements that didn't work together particularly well. And I must admit I didn't believe the way it ended.
Did you feel that Russell Crowe's performance was stronger than the other two movies that I referenced?
Oh, definitely. He's found a role or a character that is much more dramatic and much more involving, whereas the Pope's Exorcist and all of that shenanigans going on with exorcism just isn't effective at all. He just overacts at times, and it just doesn't work.
Jackie, what did you find much to enjoy about the movie Sleeping Dogs?
What I enjoyed was seeing Russell Crowe come back to an excellent performance of a character and beef up for it. He looks really beefy and older, and it's not a glamorous role at all, and he does it very well. And I'm going to agree with pretty much everything Peter said there about the film. I found it, and like you, I found it, the plot was a bit convoluted. I really didn't follow every bit of it. I struggled with that inconsistency in his mental capacity, whether or not, and sci-fi did occur to me at one stage too, Peter. I just found the inconsistency there didn't work at all for me, and it took me out of the story as I was trying to work that out. And it also kind of contrasted with there was kind of a tedium and a dullness and a repetition to the film. It kind of laid it on a bit thick with the, constantly staring into the mirror, which actually was quite good. Looking into Russell Crowe, looking into the mirror was really quite compelling, but it was laid on a bit thick. The alcohol, the jigsaw puzzle, even the script to me was actually quite flat. I found it a little bit boring. And on top of that, the music was really, it was just like, it's when you're thinking about the music and not the story, you're thinking, you shouldn't be. I mean, the music.
That's funny. Jackie, I actually disagree with that. I was quite involved in the storyline. I was really trying to concentrate to follow all the threads because there were so many of them. So having said that, it's interesting all of us say the same thing with regards to Russell Crowe. There's no question if he chooses the right part, his acting chops are as good as anybody. And I was really delighted, like you were, to see him get back to what he does damn well, right? He really inserts himself and becomes the character that he's playing. So, that's not to... I agree that the Sleeping Dogs isn't anywhere near a perfect movie, but his performance in it elevates the film to what somebody else may not have been able to achieve. So, okay, let's start with you, Peter. You'll presumably give it a low score. I'll probably give it the high score. What are you going to give this movie? 111 minutes of it, Sleeping Dogs, MA rated.
Okay, it's a bit like the curate's egg. It's good in parts, but it has some problematic elements. So I actually gave it 6 out of 10.
Okay, Jackie?
Oh, ditto, exactly, Peter. I gave it 6 out of 10.
And I'll go highball. I'm giving it a 7 because I still thought there was quite a bit of merit in it, and that's the reason for my score. Let us go.
It is an odd thing, Alex, to to say that I gave all of my score for this very committed performance by Russell Crowe, and I'm just so excited to see him come back and really deliver something that really feels truer to his skills and talents. And we've always loved having, the Aussie actor up there. But then it wasn't the right vehicle as a film to watch and enjoy, I thought. Anyway, final comment.
No, good to hear.
And also it was shot in Melbourne, the film.
Yes, which is terrific. But I mean, we've known we punch above our weight, don't we? In many areas, including the Olympic Games, we should insert that it's been a remarkable Games for Australia in every way, shape or form, regardless of the fact that obviously we've medalled in new sports as well, where we're noted for performing in. But it's funny, we started on a very serious topic, but boy, our women are quite something. I'm not taking anything away from the men that won the medals, etc. But gee, talk about top heavy, lopsided. I was so ecstatic at how well everybody did, but in particular the women. And wow, per capita we've done darn well. Even not per capita, we've done extremely well. And I'm just frustrated. I'm going to have to wait another 4 years, as the rest of Australia does, for the next Olympic Games. And I'm already looking forward to 2032, when the Games are going to be.
That was a good year.
It was a good year, but well, you're already an old man then, weren't you, Peter?
Exactly, that was when it was launched.
Yes. Well, you were there in old time Greece, weren't you, when the first Games were there? You're already. And
yes. I remember the musical really well.
Yeah, you must give us an account of what it was like to be in the crowd. When the first marathon runner came past, all those years ago. You'd have vivid memories, or have they faded by now, Peter?
No, vivid memories, because this was the day before electricity, when all the video cameras weren't operating properly.
Good to know, Peter. Yes, yeah. We must have an entire show just devoted to Peter's recollections. Talking about recollections, there's a movie which opens this coming Thursday called Iris and the Men, which I wanted to preempt. It's an M-rated movie. Thankfully, 98 minutes, so that's kind of nice. After 16 years of marriage and 22 years together, a conservative dentist and mother, Iris Bayou's husband, Stefan, appears to have lost interest in her. So that's a shame. And the pair's got a couple of daughters, Anna, aged 15, and Lily, who's a 10-year-old. And although the pleasantries between Iris and Stefan remain, the passion's gone. And they actually haven't had sex for 4 years. And while waiting for a parent-teacher meeting, a fellow mother gives Iris a solution, which basically this other mother swears by. In fact, she claims that it actually saved her life. And just what might that answer be? Well, get onto a dating app or apps for purely physical hookups. So what could be wrong with that? Yes, Iris does it and gets instant results. And before she knows it, it's figuratively raining men of all ages, shapes and sizes. So all you need to do is to get on a dating app and everybody will come a-running. That's what it's basically suggesting, this movie, Iris and the Men. Okay, well, she then experiences a series of one date stands, and she regains that spring in her step, connecting with her desire and her sexuality. And at first, Stefan hardly notices because he's so busy working. He's landed a big contract. And then, though, Iris's unusual behaviour becomes impossible to ignore. Iris's dental assistant, called Nuria, is also decidedly put out by Iris's aberrant conduct. While attending to patients, Iris is forever distracted by the pinging phone messages that she receives. And she begins taking increasing amounts of time off at very short notice during the day. Now, truth be told, she just longs to be wanted by her husband, But I pose this question, are matters too far gone? Is there a way back? So this is a comedy, Iris and the Men, a comedy with distinctively French proclivities. It's written and directed by Caroline Vignal. There's a sadness, there's a yearning, and there's that word again, joie de vivre about it. The origins of the film were in what Vignal heard from a friend of hers, 51-year-old friend, who had embraced life after her husband suddenly left her. And another friend had encouraged her to sign up to a dating site, which boosted her damaged ego and lifted her cloak of invisibility, which is something that we hear about. It's not unusual that people after a certain age feel that they are invisible, and particularly women. So I thought Lou Kalami was quite delightful as the centerpiece of the film. She channels a great deal through her distinctive facial expressions and her body movement, and she transitions her character well from downcast, the book she reads at night in bed speak volumes, I might say. She sort of transitions this character from downcast to cheeky and cheery. Very much her movie, and the world gravitates around her character. The film does manage to avoid much focus on the stranger danger inherent in the situation in which Iris chooses to put herself. That troubled me, actually. It concentrates on the adventure and the excitement. Now, I understand that was its purpose, but yeah, it sort of it did trouble me. Anyway, naive, yeah, it was inherently so, but I suppose I put it down to the fairy tale that it was. As to the issue of consent, and that also troubled me enormously. It's left to her almost 16-year-old daughter, Iris's almost 16-year-old daughter, to bring that to the fore at a dinner table, and Iris enrages the daughter with her surprising response. There's quite an inner strength I felt about Vincent Elbaz's representation of Iris's husband and devoted, the devoted father, Stefan. Suzanne de Bequy gives voice to confusion and unease, making her presence felt in the process. So, look, it's got warmth, it's got charm. I reckon many are going to find it appealing, and I enjoyed Iris and the Men for what it is and what it was. What about you, Greg King?
Oh, look, this is a charming enough film. As you said, it doesn't outstay its welcome. It's only, what you said, 98 minutes or so. But I thought there was a playfulness about the film, like especially in the second half there, especially when they break into that song and dance routine of its raining men on the steps, that worked a treat, I thought. And as the movie went on, Laura Calme's character looked and acted younger as the film progressed, I thought.
Yes.
So, going for this 50-year-old, she was much more youthful and joyful and energetic by the end of the film. I thought that worked a treat as well. Some of the humour worked really well. Visual humour, as you said, the book she's reading in bed, they speak volumes about the relationship between her and them. I also love the way they use the sex messages, to ding every time, and that played off beautifully at the end of the film.
I agree. It's interesting how her whole life was transformed, and the whole point of it was to get the attention of the husband. Peter, you haven't seen this one, or you have? I can't.
I saw it at the French Film Festival. Yes.
Ah, yes. Well, and your thoughts?
I was a bit worried by this film because French rom-coms have a history of edging the boundaries, of hitting the boundaries, and challenging the typical roles that married couples have. And yet this one turns out to be ultra-conservative, as it turns out, even though on the surface it isn't. I thought Laura Calame is such a good actress. She was in Full Time, which was an excellent film, but she was also in other rom-coms like Two Tickets to Greece, which I didn't think was much chop. So the concept behind this film about challenging a marriage and finding a way to, I suppose, to excite a woman into revitalizing her relationship or not, as the case might be, seemed to be an interesting concept. However, it doesn't work for me at all because, as you've already mentioned, Alex, the danger, stranger danger sort of aspect doesn't come into this film at all, which I thought was really strange. And then the way the film ends up, without giving any spoilers, is just reverting to a very conservative sort of outlook on life. And I just didn't like that. I thought I would like a film.
The thing was really troubling me as well.
Yeah.
That's like you'd hate to think that because you're going to embrace life, but again, I kind of, they tried to make it into a fairy tale. It may have, it's interesting because society has changed appreciably over the last 20 years, Peter, and they may have been able to get away with it in a more naive world, right, where, they shouldn't have been able to, but I'm not sure, coming out as it is now, I just don't think they can get away with it as readily. I still enjoyed it, but I thought, it just felt wrong. Did you get that sense?
Yes, absolutely. It definitely felt wrong. I thought it's trying to challenge preconceptions and yet gives into them. And in this day and age, you would like films that are a bit more challenging, even if they're rom-coms. So, yes, I was disappointed by the film. And I thought the daughter, the relationship, mother and daughter, when they talk about condoms at the dinner table, and there's lots of dinner table conversations, I thought, this doesn't work for me. There's something wrong with the writing of this that doesn't quite work. So, yeah, I was very disappointed by this film.
Oh, okay. I wasn't very disappointed, but I on that level I was. Greg, none of this troubled you?
Not really.
Okay. No, that's...
I just went along with the film. I thought it was a bit of fun.
Yes.
Didn't take it too seriously.
Yep, understand. And again, I think I'll be very interested. Jackie's unfortunately had to leave us, but I'll be interested in her views on this. Maybe in coming weeks we'll get that, because she has strong opinions about films like this, and her views will be just as valid. So okay. So you're going to lowball this, Peter. I'm not. In spite of it, I'm going to sort of look at it as a fairy tale with sort of warning signs. So what are you giving this film, Iris and the Men, which opens on the 15th of August, rated M?
I thought if it had continued its musical sort of proclivities with It's Raining Men and a few other fantasy elements, it might have worked a lot better. So I have to only give this film 5 out of 10.
Wow. Okay. 98 minutes in duration. Greg, you're going to be much higher. What are you going to give Iris and the Men?
I'm going to give it 6.
Oh, okay. Only 6. So
yeah, I thought the start was a bit slow and a bit clunky, but as I said, it picked up as it went on.
Okay, well, it's funny. Well, I'm going to give it the high mark because I, as I say, went along with it but was troubled by elements. I'm giving it a 7. It depends on your perception when you see this one, is how I would put it. And that's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, other than societal norms having sort of said, well, we've got to be a lot more conscious of the way that people behave and are seen to behave. Okay, now on JAir 88 FM, I want to talk. I went to Palais Theatre. Gee, Palais Theatre's a beautiful venue. Greg, have you been there for concerts and things or not?
Yeah, I've been there quite a few times. I've seen a number of artists play there, including Bruce Springsteen, Bryan Adams, Meatloaf even.
Did Bruce Springsteen play the Palais?
Yeah, an acoustic. And when he came out, did an acoustic concert.
Wow. I've got to say, generally speaking, the sound travels really well. I mean, it's a 2,000-seat venue, isn't it? It's huge. Yeah, but the sound, I saw John Farnham there and thought it was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. He's in terms of artists that I've seen, John Farnham, hands down, is the best I've ever seen. I've seen him in concert quite a number of times, and hopefully he's continuing to do well. But gee whiz, that concert at the Palais stands out for me.
I enjoyed your concerts at the Rod Laver Arena. They were fantastic as well. But for me, the best artists I've seen live was Bon Jovi. I like Bruce Springsteen, yes, and I like Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi had a lot of energy and hit after hit. Bruce Springsteen I also like as well. They're the two best artists I've seen live.
Okay, the other one then I'll throw in, seeing Adele live, oh my golly, goosebumps. Phenomenal voice. Like John Farnham. It's interesting. The distinctiveness of the voice makes her who she is, and hit after hit and so on. And I saw it not in Melbourne, I saw it in Sydney, and it was a very special experience. So, yeah, it's interesting how something stands out like that. I mention and reference it because there were only two shows. The last one is this evening, Sunday evening, called La Rondine, which translates to the swallow. And unlike the rock and pop concerts we've talked about, this is an opera. And I really enjoyed it. It's Victorian opera, and it asks a rather important question. Can one truly escape one's past? And can true love win out? Now, what's your view, boys? Do you think people change? I'll accept that they don't change readily, but how seriously can you change someone's disposition during the course of their life, Peter? Do you think you can change somebody a long way, just sort of iron out some of the rough edges? What do you think is possible in the vast majority of instances, if not all?
It's very difficult to change someone's thinking, attitude and behaviour. They have to have a life-threatening experience before they reevaluate their life.
Yep. I think that's a very prosaic way of putting it. Greg, do you agree? How much can somebody change?
I don't know. It's not something that can happen overnight. It's obviously a long process and probably needs something to happen to bring about a change. So I'm sure people do change along the way, but yeah, it's not something I'll put a lot of thought into. Alex?
Well, look, these are the questions, and this is what I liked about this. These are the questions posed in Giacomo Puccini's La Rondine, and it's a 3-act lyric opera set in Paris and on the French Riviera. I think it's highly appropriate, seeing this is on during the Olympic Games. But there we go. It concerns maybe that was deliberate programming. I haven't asked Victorian Opera about that, but if it was, congratulations. It concerns the fate of a mistress. So this woman called Magda, and her provider, a wealthy man called Rambaldo, are hosting a cocktail party. And at this party, there's a poet called Prunier who declares that romance is back in fashion. We're talking about the 1900s at some stage, depending upon who you believe, 1920s, 1930s, that sort of era. Anyway, Prunier predicts that like a swallow, hence the title, La Rondine, the Swallow, Magda will fly south to pursue supreme happiness. Prunier's girlfriend happens to be Magda's maid, a woman called Lisette. And Lisette interrupts proceedings at this sort of get-together to announce the arrival of a young man named Ruggiero, who's the son of Rambaldo's childhood friend. And he's new to Paris. So he asks where he might best enjoy an evening out in the City of Love. Lisette suggests a famous Latin Quarter restaurant and dance hall called Boulieres. And Ruggiero takes up the recommendation. Prunier also heads there with Lisette, and Magda turns up in disguise. And this is the kicker. When a group of students shows interest in Magda at this restaurant, Boulieres, she seeks refuge at a table where Ruggiero is sitting, but does not recognise her because she's in disguise, and after all, he's only just met her. And the pair quickly and effortlessly falls passionately in love. It ain't love grand. It is indeed. And that's sort of where the whole thing really kicks up a gear. They envisage a future together. They subsequently enjoy each other's company on the French Riviera. Very nice. But Magda worries that she has deceived Ruggiero because Ruggiero doesn't know who she is and about her past. And she's concerned that she'll embarrass him and his family. So the question is, will she be able to shake off her colourful past, or is she kidding herself by living a lie? It's a really beautiful romantic opera. A gorgeous score. It's rich, it's lyrical. It juxtaposes dreams and reality with a really deft touch. And ultimately, it's, of course, idealistic, but it's also quite crushing. So Victorian opera has given us much to appreciate and savour in a really splendid production, directed by Stuart Maunder, conducted by Tobias Ringborg. And the soprano in this one is Keandra Howarth. She is just magnificent, intoxicating as Magda. The purity in her voice, the elevation in her vocalisation are superb throughout. It really, really just brilliant. The timbre and tone in Wan Wai Choi's delivery enhances his performance as Ruggiero. Really, really strong as well. Great coupling, very well done together. And there's a jauntiness about Douglas Kelly's role as Prunier, and Nina Corby brings attitude, which is what you want to Lizette, the maid. Any day that I hear Teddy Tahu Rhodes is a great day. Oh my golly, what a performer. I remember seeing him in an MTC production. What a voice. He's a commanding presence as Rambaldo. The set and costume designer Richard Roberts provides a real visual treat with his elegant costuming, striking scenery. There's a different feel to each act, and he does that very well with very little. Gavin Swift's lighting design, there's tonal shifts there as the opera plays out. So again, just what you need. Orchestra Victorian, mighty fine voice, helping to make La Rondine a magical night of operatic excellence. And it's 2 hours, 20 minutes, 2 intervals in that. I think they're both around about the 20-minute mark. It's sung in Italian with English surtitles, and the surtitles are easily much more easy to follow than a lot of opera, where it doesn't kind of make a lot of English language sense to me when I'm reading it. This is not the case. It's at the Palais Theatre only until this evening. Only 2 performances. All the shame, because I reckon it could have done a longer season. But you have to sell a lot of tickets, do you not, to make it worthwhile at the Palais Theatre, Greg? It's 2,000 seats is a lot to sell out. And a lot of shows there are only one night. I sort of sometimes look at the programs there and think, oh, what a shame. It'd be nice to be able to see something and review it. But we're reasonably well served with theatres in Melbourne, Greg, but I reckon we could still do with a few more. And I don't know whether you noticed that there was a news release that was put out a few weeks ago. While the State Theatre is being redeveloped, which will take 3 years or the best part thereof, they've opened a smaller venue where there's going to be a lot of shows in coming months in the interim. And I can't even remember, it's something like 130, 80 seat venue. I stand to be corrected there, but I'm delighted that there's another opportunity for Melburnians to see theatre of all its forms. Thank you very much, Greg, for your input today. Peter Krause, likewise, and Jackie, who has left us, as I mentioned. We are going to do it all again very soon, first on Film and Entertainment. Listen out for our next show. And, contribute. By all means, become members of JAir 88 FM. See you soon.